Welcome everybody, today I'm going to start something new. I've always been interested in history, especially World War I and World War II. Once I started playing World of Tanks, I started looking into the vehicles, battles and historical figures that deserve mentioning. That is why I came up with this. General History is a character I play to give lectures about a random historical event, a vehicle or a person. As you may have already noticed, this first ever General History talks is about the Jagdtiger. General History will go over the vehicle specifications in real life, positive and negative features, eyewitness accounts and combat history. In the background, I will feature gameplay footage of the vehicle and historical pictures of the vehicle or notable people with ties to the vehicle. Well, that's a lot of vehicle in one sentence. But everybody, I've let General History wait for so long now, he's gonna take over and teach you about the Jagdtiger. Today, we're taking a look into the Jagdtiger and the Jagdtiger 8.8cm. Jagdtiger is the common German name for the Jagdpanzertiger Ausführung B. As is common for most tank destroyer type vehicles in the German army, they receive Jagd in their name, which is German for hunt. The ordnance inventory designation was SD KFZ-186. The vehicle is based on the Tiger II and featured a lengthened chassis, a heavily armored casemate and housed a 122 PaK 44 L55 main gun. This gun was able to outrange and destroy any Allied or Soviet tank on the battlefield. After the success of other casemate tank destroyers, for example the Stuk III and the Marder series, the military leadership wanted a super heavy tank destroyer on the chassis of existing tanks. The advantage of using the existing chassis as well as casemated vehicles was reducing cost, weight and materials used, plus the ability to mount larger guns. Even though the weight reduction is listed as an advantage, this tank destroyer weighed a whopping 72 tons, making it the heaviest fighting vehicle operationally in World War II and is still the heaviest armored vehicle to achieve series production. In early 1942, a request was made for a self-propelled gun with the 128mm gun, which was tested and showed a high percentage of hits. Together with this beast of a gun, they tested smaller caliber guns, like the 88mm and the 105mm. The 128mm PaK 44 became an option for use in tanks after naval weapons of this caliber were being manufactured and tooling became more available. Rheinmetall Borsig and Krupp were awarded contracts, and Rheinmetall developed a gun that was a variant of the 128mm flak gun, while Krupp opted to build a design from scratch. Eventually, the Krupp design was chosen, but tests showed that the Towed anti-tank gun was too heavy, weighing 11 tons. In 1943, this gun was chosen for the Jagdtiger and most super heavy tanks. The gun used two-piece ammunition, a projectile and cartridge. Due to this, the gun could be fired with a light or medium charge, normally used when fulfilling an artillery role, or with a heavy charge when fulfilling the attendant anti-tank gun role. The Panzergranate 43 is an armor-piercing capped ballistic cap high explosive projectile, or APCBC-HE for short, although it is still a mouthful. With a heavy charge in this projectile, the gun was capable of penetrating 212mm of 30 degrees sloped armor at 500 meters, 200mm at 1 kilometer, and 178mm at 2 kilometers. The cap on the projectile gives the round great aerodynamic capabilities, and when it hits the armor, deforms so that the actual penetrator can do its job. The high residual energy of the shell, combined with the fragmentation from the bursting high explosive, would incapacitate the vehicle and crew. The gun performed similar to the 88 PaK 43 in short to medium range combat, but it outshines the 88 on long to extreme ranges, being 1800 meters up to ranges in excess of 2700 meters. In the casemate, this gun had a 10 degrees traverse, which meant that the entire vehicle had to be moved when the target would go outside that field of fire. By early 1943, the Germans wanted to mount a 128mm gun on a Panther or Tiger chassis as a heavy assault gun, but the Panther chassis was found unsuitable. Eventually they settled on the Tiger II chassis, and a wooden mock-up was presented to Hitler in East Prussia. They made two prototypes, one based on the 8 road wheel suspension system by Porsche, and another with a 9 overlapping wheel suspension system by Henschel, which was already in use on the Tiger II. The prototypes were completed in February 1944 and originally named Jagdpanzer 6, but later renamed Jagdtiger. The Jagdtiger was a continuation of the Jagdpanzer designs, very much like the Jagdpanther, which is based on the Panther tank, but with a fully enclosed and armored fighting compartment, unlike some of the earlier model Jagdpanzers, for example the Martyrs or Nashorn, which were lightly armored and not fully enclosed. The casemate and hull sides were integral, while the front glacis plate did not extend to the top of the casemate roof like the Jagdpanther, but the frontal plate of the casemate is retracted, which I guess is because of the large gun. Maneuvering with such a big gun so far forward must be difficult, especially in woodland or urban environment, which would explain to me why they opted to bring the casemate further back. The front of the casemate is 250mm thick, while the glacis plate is 150mm. The sides and rear of both the casemate and hull were 80mm. The Jagdtiger sadly suffered from mechanical and technical problems due to its weight and the underpowered V12 Maybach engine, which only had 690 horsepower, giving it a 9.8 horsepower per ton. Also, what I found out during my endless hours reading up on German combat vehicles is something that is rarely mentioned when talking about the fragile nature of these engines in these vehicles. That is, a lot of workers that built the components for these vehicles were slave laborers, like POWs or Jews, who would sabotage components with the risk of losing their lives. Of course, being underpowered and extremely heavy does not help. Apart from the 120mm anti-tank gun, the Jagdtiger also had a 7.92mm MG34 in a ball mount in the hull, like the Tiger II. 150 Jagdtigers were ordered, but only between 70 and 88 were produced from July 1944 to May 1945. 11 of these were produced with the Porsche suspension, while the rest featured the Henschel suspension. One Henschel and 10 Porsche Jagdtigers featured Zimmerit anti-tank paste, but Germans realized that it wasn't necessary since they were the only nation using magnetic explosives. Also, there was the unfounded concern that the Zimmerit would catch on fire when hit. Now, we finally come to the interesting part: combat history. Only 2 anti-tank battalions, or Schweres Panzerjägerabteilung, numbered 512 and 653, were equipped with Jagdtigers. The first vehicles reached units in September 1944. About 20% of these were lost in combat, while most were destroyed by their own crews, who had to abandon their vehicles due to mechanical breakdowns or lack of fuel, especially in the final stages of the war. Because of the 2-part ammunition, the tank had 2 loaders, which means this vehicle had a crew of 6, a driver, a bow gunner/radio operator, a gunner, 2 loaders, and the commander. The Tiger Ace autocarriers is the only source I found about combat examples of the Jagdtiger, which he talks about in his memoirs Tigers in the Mud. He writes about the second company of the 3 Jagdtiger companies in Panzerjägerabteilung 512, where he commanded 10 Jagdtigers. He mentions that the Jagdtigers could not be utilized to their full potential due to several factors. The massive gun had to be recalibrated from jarring when traveling off-road, even for short distances. The vehicle was slow, and the transmissions and differentials broke down easily, because the entire 72-ton vehicle needed to be moved to rotate the gun outside the 10-degree traverse angle. This beast of a gun had to be locked down in the travel log on the hull, since the mounting brackets in the fighting compartment would otherwise wear out, making accurate firing difficult, even if stationary. That meant that a crew member had to get out of the vehicle to unlock the gun before firing. However, having a gun this big was also an advantage. Carriers mentioned, since he mentions... damn it. Yeah, sorry guys. My mouth doesn't want to do what I need it to do. Let's try that again. Carriers mentioned he witnessed that a 128mm shell penetrated tank on the other side of our house, going through all the walls in between the Jagdtiger and the American tank. Another problem that seemed to plague the Germans was Allied air supremacy, which made it difficult to move. Insufficient crew training and poor morale were the biggest problems for crews under Carrier's command. He records that 2 Jagdtiger commanders were afraid of Allied air attacks if they were to engage an American column about 1.5 kilometers away, in daylight. Even though these Jagdtigers were well camouflaged, both of these vehicles broke down while withdrawing from a feared air attack that never happened, and one was destroyed by the crew. Carriers dug himself in on high ground to prevent such a disaster while at Siegen, but German civilians warned the approaching American convoy who avoided the ambush. One of his vehicles drove into a bomb crater while relocating at night and was disabled. Yet another was destroyed by a German Volkssturm unit who fired at it with a Panzerfaust because they had never seen a Jagdtiger before. Carriers wrote that having insufficiently trained or experienced troops is useless, since these units were prone to losing their nerve in firefight situations. One example of this is when near Unna, one Jagdtiger climbed a hill to attack 5 American tanks a mere 600 meters away, of which 2 withdrew and the others opened fire. The American tanks were unable to penetrate the 250mm of armor, but the inexperienced commander lost it and ordered the tank to be turned around instead of backing up. This resulted in the loss of all 6 crew members. Carriers mentions that crews need to be at least experienced enough to keep the thickest part of their armor towards the enemies at all times. When Carriers and his remaining tanks were unable to escape the road pockets, he ordered to destroy the guns on all remaining Jagdtigers and afterwards surrender to American forces. Of the 10 vehicles under his command, they lost 1 to friendly fire, 1 to combat, and all 8 others were either lost to breakdowns or destroyed by their crews. They only managed to destroy 1 American tank in return. On January 17, 1945, 2 Jagdtigers were used by the American 14th Corps engaged German bunkers near Auenheim in support of infantry. On the 18th, they attacked 4 bunkers at 1 kilometer range, and the armored cupola of 1 bunker burned out after 2 shots, and the Sherman tank, presumably used by the Germans, was destroyed when it counterattacked, with only high explosive shells. Both Jagdtigers survived and fired 46 high explosive shells and 10 anti-tank shells. The Schweres Panzerjägerabteilung 512 saw a lot of action in April 1945, especially on April 9th, where the 1st Company attacked from a hold-down position. An Allied column of Sherman tanks and trucks lost 11 tanks and 30 unarmored or lightly armored vehicles. Some of these Shermans were knocked out from over 4 kilometers away. The only Jagdtiger loss in this action was when P-47 ground attack aircraft appeared. During the next couple of days, the 1st Company destroyed 5 more Shermans, but had to surrender at Iserlohn. The 2nd Company had to surrender on the 15th of April at the Schillerplatz in Iserlohn without much result in the days that they fought on. Only 3 vehicles survived the war. One is in the Bovington Tank Museum in England, which is a Porsche variant. This one was captured near Sennelager in Germany in April 1945 by British troops. It was a test vehicle being used for trails. Interestingly, the 3rd wheel station on the left is missing, and Zimmerit was only applied to about 2 meters high on the superstructure. Another is found in the National Armor and Cavalry Museum in Fort Benning, Georgia, USA. It was produced in October 1944 and attached to the Schweres Panzerjägerabteilung 653 and had vehicle number 331. This one was captured in Neustadt an der Weinstraße, Germany in March 1945, with damage visible to the gun mantle, glacis plate and lower nose armor. The last one is in the Kubinka Tank Museum in Moscow, and this is a Henschel variant. It was captured by Soviet forces when 4 Jagdtigers from Schweres Panzerjägerabteilung 653 surrendered near Amstetten in Austria on May 5, 1945. This Jagdtiger is in mint condition and is complete with side skirts and an MG42 AA mount on the rear engine deck. This vehicle, however, was not coated in Zimmerit. Now, you may be wondering, general history, what about the Jagdtiger 8.8cm? Well, faithful audience, that was a proposition to manufacture a number of Jagdtigers with the 80mm PaK 43 due to shortages of the 128mm PaK 44, which only featured one example, with inventory designation SD KFZ 185, although it did not enter service. This was it about the Jagdtiger. Design, production statistics, combat history, and surviving vehicles. I hope you enjoyed it. I must say that I enjoy making a video like this, sharing the historical side, with some gameplay footage in the background, and I think I will continue doing it for other vehicles. If you did enjoy this, please give it a like, share this with your friends if you think they might like it as well, and leave a comment below. Also, let me know which vehicle you think I should do next in the comments. If you want to stay up to date with general history talks or like my other vehicles, please subscribe and click the bell notification button so you will receive a message when a new video is uploaded. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.